My guest in this episode of Passing the Torch is the author of Never Stay Broke Because Motivation Alone Won't Pay the Bills. This book is for the person who has done everything they were told, study hard, work harder, stay positive, and is still asking, why does it feel like I'm always starting from zero? Never Stay Broke is a clear, honest guide for figuring out what actually works when things aren't working. It won't promise millions or magic. It gives you a way forward, whether you need to make it to the next day, next week, next month, or the rest of your life without looking back. It's not about motivation. It's not about mindset. It's about movement. Small, smart, stacked decisions that build into something you can stand on. He is also the author of Negative to Zero, a powerful motivational self-help book. The book is inspired by the author's journey from wealth to extreme poverty and back in the lessons he learned along the way. The title Negative Zero refers to the transition from being in a negative state where one is not fully aware of oneself and the surrounding forces to the point of awareness or zero. The book is a powerful tool for anyone looking to improve their lives and achieve their goals. In summary, my guest believes the future belongs to those who own their decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, Passing the Torch with Joseph Rutakangwa starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for that wonderful intro, Martin. Makes me feel like, I've read out the books and, I've been right.
No, I tried to.
That was good. That was good. I loved it.
I appreciate that. Like, I put a lot of time into the intros, and I know a lot of podcasts now just kind of go straight to the questions and all that stuff, which is great. But I like doing the intros, and it helps me understand the person more, especially as we're about to have a conversation, right?
Yes, appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm an avid reader, man. So I definitely read books, and I try to do the best I can to surmise a bio for the guest.
And I appreciate that you actually also checked out Negative to Zero. So Never Stay Broke is my new book, but you also checked out my first book, Negative to Zero, which it's like more philosophical. Never Stay Broke is like very practical. There's nothing about mindset. It's like purely on execution. And Negative to Zero is more philosophical and mindset leaning. And I appreciate that you checked it out and also saw where I was coming from that perspective and looked at what I wrote recently. So very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, thanks for saying that. So, and you wrote the first one. Was that in 2020 or 20?
Yes, 2023. So I wrote.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I wrote Negative to Zero 2 years ago, like a bit longer, 2 years, like January of 2023. And it started as during COVID. I had stuck in my house and shut down, pandemic, people are dying, and my fear was not dying from COVID, but my fear was we're going to run out of food, right? So in our quote unquote advanced societies, we don't grow food in the backyard, so we're all reliant on the supply chain, and started going to supermarkets, and we had things rationed, so you can't take like as much as you want. And I started saying that, well, if we run out of foods from supermarkets, people are just going to start going door to door, attacking people who are single like me. And they could. I was imagining. I'm a movie guy. I love movies, so I was imagining this like very dystopian future where people start eating each other, right? And I'll be like a first victim of that kind of situation. So in that kind of thinking, I was like, well, if the world is ending right now, have I done everything I dreamed of doing when I was 6 years old, right? Everything. And the answer was no. I was busy into, trying to build my startup Ruazi, and I spent too much time in consulting and building systems and all that, but I hadn't touched my artistic side. So right after the first lockdown, when everything started opening up, I hit a studio, and I had this blocker, right, which most people have, and we don't see it as a blocker. I didn't hit a studio because I was saying, well, I need to have enough money to get the best producer. I need to, get vocal, training. I need to actually write a good song, make sure it's like, audited and everything is clean. Then I need a great marketing campaign and all of this stuff. And, total budget is like $100,000 per song.
Yeah.
And we do that as a way because we're afraid of actually going ahead and doing it. And we're afraid of the failure that will happen if we put all of ourselves in certain work, let's say work of art or otherwise, and fail. So we're afraid of that kind of outcome. So to block us from actually moving, we start creating these like this long list of criteria of what we need to set up before we execute to have a perfect outcome, which is a very like limiting thing. So COVID for me was a push of like, get out of your house, get out of one domain expertise, start doing everything you wish to do as a kid. So started doing music that year, and then from that point I said every single year I will be doing something I've never done before in my life, and something that I used to dream of doing as a kid. So every year following that year, and I have this thing which is to beat your New Year's resolution, you have to actually execute everything by January 31st. Because
Wow.
like for New Year's resolution, we usually have this thing which is,
Yeah.
well, I'll lose weight, I'll do this, Y, X, Y, Z, and then by February you're lost, right? So I have this thing. My birthday is January 26th, so I have a rule where I have to actually accomplish all my New Year resolutions by January 26th. So in 2023, the book was on the list. It's like I have to write a book. I don't care if I'm a perfect writer. I don't care if I have all the resources to have editors and all the bells and whistles. I have to write and publish the book before my birthday. So I just sat down, I wrote Negative to Zero, which was my reflection from, I read a lot of like self-help books and personal development books. And most of them, they have this, underlying assumption that people that we know ourselves very well and we're aware of our flaws and weaknesses and limiting beliefs and all of that stuff. So Negative to Zero assumes that you actually don't know what's like pulling you back from within, and the book is just walking you through discovering that. But it's very philosophical from my perspective. So I wrote Negative to Zero, pumped it out, and then from that point I was like, well, I thought about it for a long time, and I was like, well, I also make a massive assumption, which is people take too much time to reflect and they're very introspective.
Hmm.
And in real life, most people are busy. They have multiple jobs. They have, families and kids and responsibilities and businesses and all that. They don't take too much time to reflect. And in other instances, self-reflecting can be perceived as like a scary thing. You can fall into depression or da da da. So people kind of avoid it. And ideas like mindsets, limiting beliefs, ways of adapting, ways of thinking can sound so abstract for so many people. Not everyone is inclined towards abstract thinking. So that's how I came to write my book, Never Stay Broke, which is the new book that came out last month. And in Never Stay Broke, I don't touch anything that's philosophical or that's mindset leading. So you don't have to change your belief systems. You don't have to, perceive the world differently. You don't have to do any of that stuff. So the book just lays down the, like the practical actions that you can take. It's heavy on movement. The practical actions that you can take to move from a static position, and this position is whether you finish college, you don't have a job, you're at home, you did everything you're told, do software engineering and get A's in class, get a 4.0 GPA, and you did it, and all of a sudden, well, oops, sorry, there's AI now, and the AI can do everything that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Very sorry, you know what I'm saying? And other people, you have a job, you did very well in a job, and you still get laid off because of whatever reason, AI, the economy, or whatever else. Other people, you still have your job, you have kids, and 20 years into working, you look at your savings, like, I can't really retire. The Social Security Fund is going bankrupt. I can't even afford to pay for my kids' college tuition. Maybe my older kids have finished, they can't get a job, they can't take a mortgage, I can support them on that. So, like, even after doing everything right, 20 years into your career, things look like, they haven't actually moved much, right? It feels like it's an illusion. It feels like you've just worked away 20 years and you haven't seen anything. You haven't finished paying off all the necessary stuff. You still have debt. You still have all these responsibilities. So the book starts from that position of being stuck, and I lay out the exact motions you take to get yourself out of that position. Just practical stuff. And that's how I wrote the book Never Stay Broke.
No, I love it, and I've kind of answered a lot of questions I was going to ask you, but we'll put a pin in that. We'll put a pin in Never Stay Broke.
Yes, yes.
And I actually want to go back because you mentioned a couple times about being like a little kid, 6 years old.
Yes.
So if you were to time travel and go back and talk to your 6-year-old self, do you feel like your 6-year-old self would be proud of like what you've accomplished?
Yes.
And then the other side of that, what message would you give yourself?
Yeah, so my 6-year-old, this is what I do every day. I live to, make my 6-year-old self, 12-year-old self, 18-year-old self, 24-year-old self very proud. And yes, I have actually, surprisingly, I've done everything that my 6-year-old self used to dream of.
Nice.
I live in LA. I run a tech company. I make music. I've been in a movie as an extra. So
What movie?
So the movie is not out yet.
Okay, because I do a lot of research on people,
Oh yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like that's something I missed then.
Yes,
So
it's not out yet. So like in LA, like movies are everywhere. I mean, not as
hey
much
man,
now, but they're
yeah,
everywhere. So I was like, my 6-year-old self wanted to be in a movie, so just show up and be an extra. And I end up reading like 2 lines. I'll send you the title. But it's not out yet. And then I've retired my mother, which is big.
oh,
That
that
is,
is the ultimate power
yeah,
move right there. That is like
yeah.
bravo, sir. Like
Thank you,
congratulations. That
thank you,
is
thank you, thank you.
and may I ask how old you are?
I am right now 33 years old.
Yeah, so you're pretty young, but think about that. You're a very young man. I mean, 33 years old, and you retired your mom.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean,
That's my proudest. That's the biggest
yeah,
achievement I've done in my entire life.
no one
Like,
can ever take that away from you. That's
thank
incredible.
you.
Like that
Yes,
needs to be in
yes.
the bio.
100%. 100. I love that. I love that. 100%. And I've gone through like a very long, complicated journey from when I was a kid, through a lot of challenges in between to where I am right now. And I value like three things, right? So number one is peace, so inner peace. Number two is health, and then number three is wealth. But I define wealth as generating wealth by doing the things that I love and enjoying it with the people I love, right? So, and I learned this through many, many years of like growing up that I actually wouldn't feel the wealth unless the people I love the people I love are experiencing it with me, right? So my
Yeah.
mom, being able to retire my mom, my siblings, I right now support them through college, so that I got a corporate sponsorship to go through university. I never paid a dime for my education. So I wanted the same advantage for my siblings. And it's not, I'm not doing it out of like obligation or you have to do it and all that stuff. It's how I get fulfillment. I have met a lot of people, who are running companies who have exited. I've met people like, centimillionaires who have exited, and they're like down, they're depressed, like I don't know what
Yeah.
to do, I don't have purpose, I have a giant mansion somewhere
But
in
and yet they
Malibu.
have money, right?
Yes,
They have yeah, and like to your point, sorry,
yes,
and
yes,
that's the key point is they're still unhappy. Sorry,
yes.
continue, but I
Yeah,
just
you're
wanted
right.
to
So they have
yeah.
the money. They have the money. They followed their actual passion, and that yielded like massive results. They have the mansion. They have all of that, but they still feel like this gap inside. And I tell them, like, do you know that gap? Like, I don't know how humans are engineered, but we are heavily dependent on each other and our fulfillment. I don't say happiness. I say fulfillment. Our
Mhm.
fulfillment comes from actually being in service to other people. It's very surprising. And you can't lie to yourself that, well, no, I don't love that person that much. I won't take care of them. No, no, like it's just encoded if it is. And if you do it, that's when you find fulfillment. Like right now, I during COVID, the measure that I put for myself is every day I have to ask myself a question. If I die today, am I at peace? Am I happy? Did I do everything that I wanted to do? And today the answer is yes. If I die right now, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm cool. I've done it. I've done it. So yeah. That's how I evolved. So that's my 6-year-old self, 12-year-old self, 18-year-old self. Now, what I would tell them different things because it's like different people. My 6-year-old self, I'll tell him that it's going to happen. You know, you're dreaming of these wild dreams. They seem enormous. They seem like like far away. Like you'd achieve them 50 years down the line, but it's going to happen, right? And I'll tell
Yeah.
my 18-year-old self who was like extremely anxious that stop worrying, right? So 18-year-old
Mm.
self, I was worrying a lot because I'm very analytical and I like projecting the future, and I couldn't see the path. And I'm very I like certainty. I want to calculate. I want to have assurances that this would be the outcome. And I used to be an A student, and that didn't help me. Right, A student all the time, top of the class, and I couldn't get into when I finished high school. So I was originally born in Tanzania, and I wasn't born. So I'm not. I don't pretend to be like a rags to riches story. I was born in a very wealthy life. My dad started the first electrical and mechanical consulting engineering company in the country, and his dad was very wealthy, had like massive estate, and his dad before him, and so on. Then when I was 9, my dad's company went bankrupt. Right, so we had a lot of in that country. So my dad started his company in 1981. And just for context, for like macroeconomic context, in 1981, $1 was equivalent to 1,000 Tanzanian, no, 4 Tanzanian shillings, right? And 20 years later, in 2001, $1 was equivalent to 1,000 Tanzanian shillings. So the currency devaluated by 12,400% in 20 years. So you can imagine, even if you increase your prices as a business by 10%, 20%, 30% year over year, you're still going to go under, right? And that's currency devaluation. If you add inflation on top of it and you add all these things, and you're restricted, you can't use foreign currencies. So anyway, so that's what happened when his company went bankrupt. So leading up to that, my life from 0 to 9 was perfect. I loved it. We had like early stages of homeschooled. We had encyclopedias, great books. We had a library in our house.
Yeah.
Then we had like a small laboratory in our house. My dad would teach us experiments of like lighting a bulb and things like that. We had the IBM computer, and so I would go on Yahoo back in the early 90s. This is like in that world, no one had a computer. Like no one had a library or anything like this. I went to boarding school in a foreign country. Had a passport at 6. So this is like very nice
Yeah.
stuff, right? Then all of it just came down crashing when I was 9. And my dad lost everything, lost his house, cars, everything. And we found ourselves going to my dad's village, right? And we became village kids. Imagine from this life, boarding school, flying around, da da da. And then you're now a village kid out of school. And people are laughing at us, like, oh, you guys thought you're all that. So now, you know? And we couldn't. So in the village, my grandfather had a massive, enormous estate, but the estate requires like a lot of people to work in it. And that year, when my dad went bankrupt, my grandfather also died. So magically, just everything just got wiped. We couldn't afford paying people to work in the estate, so we started working in the estate ourselves. So I was those kids that are like heading cattle and doing like this manual labor stuff in the estate. And in those moments, we stayed there for 2 years. But as a kid, that was like 20 years worth of worth of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like kids, time moves like really, really slow for kids. And in that point, you're not seeing the exit. Like you're experiencing life without knowing how you're going to get yourself out of the situation. So for us, that was like the end of the and railway, and we became village kids out of school. My mom, luckily for us, my mom is extremely, extremely ambitious. She is very delusional, and she'll do anything to bridge the gap between her dreams and the reality that we're living in.
Yeah.
So she told us, "Look, guys, your current situation, the environment you're in, quote unquote, reality, isn't the one that defines who you are. Like who you are, like which is like your dignity, your self identity, is independent of your financial state, is independent of the work you're doing, of your education, of any of that stuff. and the reality that you're experiencing is shaped by your dreams, imagination, and how the vision that you have of yourself. So you don't, so it's not like outward coming in where, if you have this job and you had this education, therefore you're X, but it's the reverse of it, which is you see yourself as X, and therefore you take only actions that that person that you see yourself as would take, and as a result you end up becoming that person. So you actually practically manufacture reality that way. It's actually surprisingly very easy because we were kids. It made sense. Kids were very imaginative.
Yeah.
We read a lot of books, Charles Dickens and all that, so we like making things from thin air. But that's a skill that helped us all these years to get to this point. So in the village, we asked our mom, like, we need to get out of this place. My dad at that point had left us, and he was like figuring out a way to save us or something like that. And nothing happened. Month one, month through, month three, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, nothing. So we're like, we're not going to wait for that. We want to leave. Want to leave. Want to go. We want to build our own life. We pressured our mom, and my mom was like, okay, great. Okay, so let's exit. Now, how are we going to exit when we're in this environment which doesn't have money? Like, there's no circulation of currency because people are doing substance farming. And luckily for us, close to where we were living, there was a school. And the school was doing like a 10-year anniversary or something like that. So a lot of tourists were coming in. There's no restaurant in the village. So our idea was, work with our mom, and the idea was, we'll do breakfast. We have cows, so we can generate milk. We'll make tea, and then we'll create a snack. But the snack that we'll create has to be a snack that it has to have a unique advantage. So it has to be something that no one else in the village can make, but it has to be familiar enough that other people, like when they taste it, they will like it. So my mom had a book. My mom is a very good cook, like exceptional. And we used to cook a lot when we were doing well. So we went to the village, went with a book called Food for 50. In that book, we have a lot of recipes for dinner, lunch, breakfast, and all sorts of things. Muffins, cakes, and biscuits, and pasta, and whatever. And the thing that was unique, super unique, no one else in the village had seen or experienced, but the taste is familiar enough to things that people know, was a donut.
Mm.
And the advantage of a donut was the ingredients are available in the nearby shops. So went and borrowed, maize flour. I mean, wheat flour, and all the sorts of ingredients that are needed to make donuts. And we borrowed, and that was based on like integrity, right? So you don't have cash and you don't have a history of income. But we went to a shop and we said, they know us, upstanding citizens, It's like people they know the kids, and da. So my mom used that social capital to borrow ingredients just for one morning. So we made the donuts. We used the chairs that we had in our house to set up on the road, and we, 7 a.m. we had set up everything. We were selling tea and donuts. Just people flocked, and we sold out by 10 a.m. 3 hours. Right?
Wow.
That was my first experience looking at my mom orchestrate this whole thing of, you don't have any resources, you seemingly don't have any resources, and then you realize you have the skill, you have things that are already assets, like furniture in your house, social capital, and so on, and figuring out what your immediate environment needs and what that immediate environment is going to accept, the gap between how different can it be, but in a way that could still be acceptable to the market. So that was like pure, creation, seeing my mom do that. And that was my first experience working. So I was in a restaurant selling tea. And
Wow.
donuts.
Man, now I'm hungry, man. Now I want a donut. So
you
hey,
know,
actually,
and
I want to jump. I want to interject
yeah,
because there was a passage in the book where, like, it's. I'm just gonna read my notes because I had it's a lot to remember. But there's a passage in the book, and I wanted to make sure I got to this.
yeah.
Yeah. So again, passage in the book describing how being broke takes over all of your senses. It shouts in your ears, rattles your confidence, and wears you down at every step.
Yes.
It's not just the lack of money that hurts; it's the loss of control.
Yeah.
So, that section alone made me pause and think deeply about how powerful the message is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, what was the first step? I I guess is that maybe that story if I were to ask, what's the first step you took to start regaining control?
Separating what we do, like our finance, our education, like our entire reality from our identity. So we were paralyzed. Before that point, our identity was, dad is rich and we're living a good life. We're going to school, boarding school. We're very smart kids. Da, da, da. So our identity was tied up, around all these things. And when, the world, the universe took all of that stuff away, we were crushed and paralyzed for 2 years, right? So we couldn't, you know, and people are laughing at you and you're a kid. It's bad, right?
Yeah.
So we're completely, utterly paralyzed, and we couldn't go into any school. We couldn't do anything because we were paralyzed. And the way my mom helped us think through and out of that paralysis was separating our identity from your bank balance, from our school, because we're very smart kids. So we tied too much of our identity on being smart and going to expensive schools and blah blah blah. So you don't have that. So if you don't have that, well, does it mean your identity is crushed and therefore you're nobody? No. So my mom told us to just completely detach our identity from all those physical and materialistic markers, right? And so therefore, what is my identity if you remove all that stuff? How do I identify myself? And my mom taught us you identify yourself by by creating a vision that you have for yourself. So you're actually creating it. You have to create it. Like that thing, your self identity doesn't exist. You create it. So even if we're currently broke, when we're out of school, we don't have any money, completely embarrassed. Everyone in the whole place is laughing at us. At that point, they're saying my dad is mad, has gone mad, is out there walking around like a madman. So the person you believed in and you as a kid, like almost all your ego is tied to your parents, and your entire self,
Oh, yeah.
sense of like self and worth is tied to your parents. And if your parents fall, that's a bad experience, like terrible experience. Like I actually argue that people who are born into poverty, it's easier for them, because they only have one way of going up. They have like one route up. They have, because they're starting from zero. But if you were up and you crash and you see your parents powerless, it's very damaging for a kid, and it takes too much psychological work to lift a kid out of that kind of mind state, and all the trauma and associated things that come with it. So my mom did like a lot of work in those 2 years. I mean, she was having her own struggles herself. She told us of the struggles when we were a bit older, but she spent too much time teaching us the hero stories in the books. So I can go deeper into this, which is, if you look at so many stories in the books, um, the the Charles Dickens stories, the Prince and the Pauper,
Hmm.
the story of Heidi, the story of Joseph, for those who read the Bible and so on, it's the same route where you're born as a child, happy, everything is nice, and then the entire world around you crashes and you fall into this massive pit. And then you use massive level, which is imagination, to imagine yourself, to imagine your future and yourself in it, and then you start acting as the person you've been imagining. And by doing so, you start collapsing the gap between reality and imagination. So for instance, if you imagine yourself if you continuously see yourself as a worthy person, a very respected member of society and so on, you would continuously behave like that, even if your bank balance is zero. If you see yourself as, my mom had to rely on many tools. So she wanted to tell us stories of where our bloodline comes from, the kings and these people did great things in society. So if you're coming from that bloodline, regardless, even if you're like in the streets begging for, for scraps, you are still that person. And you have to operate from that person's, position, even if your external reality is completely against it, if that makes sense. So we never begged, like we never. So my mom is very proud.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Now that's
we never got on our knees. I say all the time, like poverty just crushed us, like stamped, crushed us. I like a good example is like when Iron Man was fighting Thanos. Iron Man is just a human being. Someone
Yeah.
sees this thing, has all these stones, has everything, and Iron Man still fought. You know what I'm saying? Like that was us, right? So poverty just crushed you. Your parents are completely powerless. Everything around you is powerless. All your systems are broken, and we still behaved as if we were rich. We still couldn't beg for anything. We had these rules: we couldn't eat in anyone's house. So we still held ourselves with maximum dignity as if we have everything together.
Yeah.
And that was very powerful. And people were laughing at us like, you arrogant pricks. Like, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah. That's funny.
But in holding that dignity and protecting it for that long, despite now, even with dignity, we understood principles of life, which is when you're creating money, you have to actually be in service of other people. You have to render the service. So even if you're holding yourself and you're protecting your dignity, how do you create cash? Making donuts, serving people nicely with the cleanest dishes, preparing the tables, and da da da. We still served. We were in service of other people, in a way to generate our early cash, but we did that with dignity. We were like tucked in shirts, everything ironed. We'd use like charcoal to iron our shirts. Very neat. So we're like, because we're poor, we're not going to be like these people who are selling food on the roads, in a dirty environment. No. We're still going to deliver the service as if we're with the resources that we have, but as if we're kings and we're living this high life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we never lost. Like my mom helped us immensely on not losing that, the identity and tying the identity to how do you actually want to see yourself, and that's who you are. And then the world will reconcile with you over time. So there's a time difference that
Yeah.
happens, for the world to meet you there. But you have to hold that vision you have of yourself. Just keep holding it until, and then holding it. What do I mean? I don't mean you just imagine and that's it. No. It means you can't do things that the person that you're envisioning yourself as would do. So you can't steal. You can't, like for instance, for us, we never raised to go to clubs and party and all that. No. Like if you imagine yourself as this CEO, serving Fortune 500 customers, would you find yourself in those positions? No. So you can't carry yourself in a way that's against the vision that you have of yourself. And by the way, it's a very beautiful trick because it ends up putting you in, like, it ends up tricking your mind into forming habits that are by default the habits you needed to get to where you want to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I mean, it sounds like there's probably and you and your family discovered a new trait about how resourceful you could be. Probably
Yes.
something, right? 'Cause and I
Yeah.
think luckily I've never had to experience that, but
Yeah.
you
No
know,
one.
but just now, like, like resilience and being resourceful. So I think it's unique in your story, the fact that I like, you were talking about like, it's hard for people. I know it may sound bad, but I think it's true when you're going from wealth to poverty,
Yes.
right? And then obviously you went back up.
Yes.
But if you could use one word to describe the person, the version of you that was on the way down, use one word to describe that person, and then separately use one word to describe the person you going back up. What would those two words be? And they can be the same word.
Yeah. So person was up and going down. The one word is arrogant.
You
And the
prick. What'd you
person,
say earlier? You like that? Yeah, sorry.
the word is arrogant, and the person who successfully went up. The word is content.
Content.
Yes.
Cool. I love that. That's
Yeah.
good.
So
Um,
I am naturally a control freak. I like mathematics. I like predicting my future. I like doing every move and making sure it's generating the outcomes that I want. Even my company, Ruazi, does decision AI, which is helping enterprise teams do exactly that. So you don't do mistakes. You predict your outcomes and make sure everything we run simulated outcomes. So no surprises, no wrong moves. But I got crushed so many times along the way. So, we left the village, stayed in the village for only 2 years. And the money we generated from donuts, we ended up moving to a small town and so on. Very long journey. But every time I got completely crushed along the journey, found myself in high school in Iowa, then got completely crushed and da da da. I learned that I'm getting crushed because I'm very stubborn and I don't
mm,
want to actually just chill, be calm and ride the wave and follow instructions. Listen, follow the instructions. do execute on all the mini micro steps that I need to do, learn, grow as a person, grow professionally, take the time that it takes, like completely exploit the time that it takes to become who I want to be. And when I actually let go and I was at any given present moment, present moment X, I was content. When that happened, which happened like in 2015, that's when life started changing for me, right? And that's how it, got to where I am right now. So it was like a long journey of evolving from this arrogant, person who wants control, was there, all the way to this person's content, and yeah, like having a beautiful balance between absorbing and going through life as it is, and executing on the things that I can control.
So if I were to ask you, if there was a giant billboard with your picture on it and your very young face, this billboard could be anywhere in the world,
Yes.
where would you want that? And it had your leadership message on it for the world to see. What would you want that message to say? And where would you want that billboard to be?
Be able to be in New York. You have a lot of visibility in New York, Times Square.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
the message. The message would be what is the vision? The message would be a question, which is, what is the vision that you have of yourself? What is the vision that you have of yourself? Now, it's worded that way. It's not what vision do you have for yourself. No. It's what's the vision do you have of yourself? So, I think I think people mistaken like the concept of vision, right? So vision isn't oh, where will you be in 5 years? I think where will you be in 5 years assumes you know how you see yourself today. And I think the most important piece in the equation, and everyone actually they do see themselves. So this is not like a mindset or philosophy exercise. Everyone already sees themselves right now. There's a way they see themselves. And my question is for everyone to just say it out loud or write it. Like,
Yeah.
how do you see yourself? What is the vision you have of yourself? The reason I say vision, because it may not be physically visible to you, but it's actually how you're subconsciously seeing yourself. So this is what I mean. Like, people accept terrible relationships, people get treated badly and they accept it. People take certain deals, people take certain jobs, people make moves and live their lives in a way that's aligned to how they see themselves. And if you want outcome X, the question is the way you're seeing yourself aligned with outcome X? And all you have to do, like the only work that's like the only way you drive movement is moving towards the direction, which is the vision of how you're seeing yourself, like the vision that you have of yourself.
That's really good.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, no, that's
that would be
good.
the question. That would be the question.
No, that's good. I do have one last question for you. What is one piece of wisdom would you pass on to the next generation of people to help them light their own torch and carry it forward?
Piece of advice. Is it a sentence, a word?
I make yeah, it could be one word.
Piece of advice. I would say if there's one piece of advice, I would say accept what you truly want. Accept what you truly want. People, like, I believe strongly that everyone knows what they truly want already. Everyone does. It's just sometimes it's against our culture. It's against our beliefs. It's against our family values. It's against all these things. And therefore people say, I don't know my purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in the world. I don't know what kind of business I want to run. I don't know what job I should take. I don't know what program or major I should take in university. I don't know who to marry. I don't know. I don't. You actually do know. It's just you don't want to accept it.
Yeah.
And because you have perceptions, maybe it's like too dark or too weird or too, like which, and then you end up spending 25 years going around in circles only to end up in the same spot that you already knew you wanted.
No, that's yeah.
So
I love that.
accept what you truly want. Yeah.
No, it's cool. Hey Joseph, I just want to thank you for coming to my podcast. After just going reading your books and everything, and just kind of it's a unique backstory.
Yeah.
So I just wanted just to have this conversation, just learn more about you, and just to, help share your message. Man, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on the platform. Really appreciate it. Very interesting and thoughtful questions that got me to
Thank
think.
you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.